let's get started. I'd like to thank everybody in the audience for being here tonight and to have this opportunity to hear about the East Bay Municipal Utilities District race, and to hear what the candidates have to say and why they want to be on the board. I would like to also remind you that we would like to have cell phones and electronics turned off so that we have no distractions. The League of Women Voters would like to thank you for being with us tonight. I'm Louise Rothman-Reamer, and I'm on the board of the Oakland League. And the League of Women Voters is a trusted, nonpartisan organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. And so that's one of the reasons that we work very hard to put on these forums, because we feel that is one of the ways that we improve government, is to have informed citizens. And so I would like to remind everyone present that we're not doing any campaigning in here, no buttons, no t-shirts, no nothing like that. And the candidates have agreed to that. And so those kinds of things can be posted outside. We're going to start and give our two candidates, and let me get my sheet with everybody's names on that. And Margaret Young and Katie Folks. So I would like to have Margaret start and tell us, why do you want to be on the board for EBMUD?
Good evening. My name is Marguerite Young. I'm a third-generation Californian and lifelong East Bay MUD customer. I guess you could say water is in my blood. From a very early age, my family and I went camping along the rivers of California, and as growing up with the dawning of the environmental movement, I quickly became involved in a variety of activities. But what really kind of set it into me was two things. One was cleaning oil-soaked birds in the San Francisco Bay, and then second, as an adult after graduating from UC Berkeley with a degree in natural resources, knocking on doors all over the Bay Area to defeat the Peripheral Canal. That began a career in water quality and water conservation with Clean Water Action and the California League of Conservation Voters, where I was able to serve on the Environmental Protection Agency's advisory committees on drinking water safety, lead legislative efforts in the state to get arsenic standards for drinking water, and become very familiar with East Bay MUD, which I believe is an outstanding agency that has the potential to be a state and national leader on water issues. I bring a level of experience, imagination, and knowledge to that task that I think is critical as we face the decisions ahead of us on climate change and water policy in California. Because one thing's for sure, this drought is not going to be the last one that we face.
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Katie Folks, and I am proud to have been your representative on East Bay MUD for the last 20 years. East Bay MUD is nationally and internationally known as one of the most progressive water districts in the world, especially with conservation, water recycling, and waste-to-energy programs that we have in our wastewater project. And all of these are things that I'm proud to have been part of for the last 20 years, and I'd like to continue. When I first ran 20 years ago, I ran because we desperately needed more water in our system for droughts, and I have been working very hard to get our Freeport Water Project online. It is online. We took our first delivery this year, and because of that delivery and your wonderful conservation efforts, we have not had to declare a mandatory rationing this year. And that's something that I hope that you are happy with. We certainly are, that we're doing our bit. I urge you to continue to conserve, and I look forward to the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's start. And, one of the questions I often think about when people say they want to be on a board like the EBMUD is, what do you think you can actually accomplish if you're on the board? What can you do? Would you start, Katie?
I'd be happy to. One of the first things that I did was to get that Freeport project online. I was one of the 2 people selected to go and work with the county and city of Sacramento to actually forge a program that would be a win-win for both us and for Sacramento. And when we had our dedication, we had Friends of the River, many environmental groups there congratulating us on coming up with something that was so progressive and modern thinking. Board members make a big difference. With us, we set the policy. We're very similar to a city council in that they set the policies and the regulations. We don't call ours ordinances, we call them policies, but it's the same effect. And the direction of East Bay MUD is dependent on the board members you have. We have a fantastic board now. We each represent our own areas. They're all very divergent. One of the things that's different about my ward is that it goes from both sides of the tunnel, and it takes somebody who can be moderate and who can listen and understand all the sides of an issue to make it work. Thank you.
Okay. Margaret?
Yes. A board is, as Katie mentioned, a board is responsible for setting the policy agenda for what is one of the 20 largest water utilities in the United States. East Bay MUD has the ability to set policy and lead on issues well beyond its borders, but it also has a lot of work to do at home. If elected, I will focus our attention on what we can do to advance gray water and stormwater programs to save water and use less water when we have lots of it. That will help us store water for the drought. I bring with me a phenomenal crowd of experts in water policy, many of whom have endorsed me for this seat, because they believe that we have more that we can do. East Bay MUD has a fantastic staff of great thinkers and creative people who want to lead the way. And I believe that East Bay MUD can do that. I'd like to see us accelerating our infrastructure investment and replacement. Right now, we're on a 400-year schedule of replacement. We lose 10%, about 10% of the water that before it gets to the meter. We can do better on that, and it's going to take a lot of collaboration among water agencies, and I think that's something that I can do. We also need to protect the McCollum River for once and for all, and had the board done that earlier, I think we'd have it now.
Okay. In this question, I'd just like to know more about how we can use wastewater and other water that is unpotable, and how we can deliver that to our communities to help with better use of our water supply. And so, Margaret, let's start with you on this question.
Thanks. It's Marguerite, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. First, we can use the water where it falls first. So the first non-potable water that we have is what falls from the sky on our roofs that we can collect through stormwater catchment. We can design our landscapes to better catch that stormwater and store it. And we can use gray water that comes right out of our showers and washing machines and dryers. And right now there's some impediments at the state level and in the building codes that we can address. On a more macro level, recycled water is something that East Bay MUD is already doing. And as we're replacing the pipe that we need to replace, we could be double trenching so that we're bringing recycled water pipe along with, because it's very expensive per mile to do that, so we might as well try to do it twice where we can. And then I'd like to see us using the buffer land around East Bay Mud's water treatment plants, where we have reclaimed water for growing food for schools and food banks, as they're doing in Contra Costa County right now.
Okay. Katie?
Thank you. Yes, the board does support the use of gray water, and it's very important. As Marguerite mentioned, there has been some impediments in the state. Fortunately, they have changed some of the laws, particularly the health laws, to allow more of it, and we encourage people who can do it to set up their own gray water systems. It's a wonderful way to save the water that we have. We also are recycling 10 million gallons a day of water right now, and we have plans by 2040 to more than double that. We're looking forward to that. One of the biggest projects we have, I think it's 4 million gallons a day, is up in Richmond at the Chevron refinery, and that is a wonderful use of our reclaimed water so that they don't have to use our precious drinking water. We also have them in 4 or 5 other areas in our district. We are looking to expand that. That's the most important thing we can do in the future. Anything else? I agree that if we are saving the water that comes out of the sky, if you can do that in your home, it's a wonderful. As long as you keep the mosquitoes out of it, it's a wonderful asset to you. Thank you.
Well, here's a question. People just want to know, in Oakland, what is the water situation because of the drought? Can you address that? Just how bad is it, or how good is it in Oakland? Katie, let's start with you.
Yes, it's not good any place in the state, as you know. We are lucky because of your good conservation efforts. The citizens in Oakland and throughout our district have never rebounded from the last drought when we had mandatory rationing, and so we were already ahead of the loop there. And then when we asked for a voluntary 10% reduction, you followed through. We are still at 10%. September is usually our hottest month, so I really encourage you to stand firm and keep that 10% going. Because we put our Freeport project online, we have been able to have enough water not to have mandatory rationing. If we don't get rain this year, we will have to, unfortunately, look at that for next year. And so we are doing workshops right now to try to come up with a fare to everyone, so we don't punish those people who are really saving now. We're coming up with a fare program to make sure that the rationing works for everyone. Thank you.
Okay, Margaret.
Hi. We're facing a historic drought. It's the worst in 150 years, some say 400 years. What we know is that this is not the last most historic drought. We are going to be looking at probably an average of 30% less rainfall as the new normal, which means that we're looking at more years like this. So I think as we look forward, we have to get through the drought that we're in, and we also need to look more long-term at how do we manage in a world that has 30% less water. And that's our whole state. It's not just East Bay Mud. We're in a pretty good situation. We have great quality water. We have the Freeport project. We need to look at conjunctive use in groundwater, and with the historic groundwater legislation that was just passed in the state legislature, I think there's some phenomenal opportunities to do that. But I also think that we need to be all in this together. And when I talk to voters, when I'm going door to door across Ward 3, whether it's on this side of the hill or the other side of the hill, people don't understand why we're not all required to save water this year. And I think they appreciate Freeport. I think they scratch their heads a little bit when they realize that we're losing as much water from leaks in our pipes as we got from Freeport this year. We can get more from Freeport if we need it, but I also think that we need to look first at our conservation.
This leads me to the question that maybe not all of our listeners know what the Freeport project is. So, Katie, could you tell us a little bit about it, and then just comment on how it works and what you think we can do with it?
Okay, I'm happy to. Thank you. The Freeport, actually, East Bay Mud, about 40 years ago, received rights from the Bureau of Reclamation to water off of the American River. The city and county of Sacramento opposed us using that water because they did not want anyone taking water out of the American River, which they consider their jewel. And so it went up to the Supreme Court. They sued us, went up to the Supreme Court, came back down, and the final determination was that East Bay Mud did have the right to take the water, but only in wet years, which did not help us because we needed water in dry years. So we started, that's about where we were when I joined the board 20 years ago. We started working with Sacramento, trying to come up with a project that would work for everyone. They needed extra water, so we agreed to go over to the Sacramento River, which had comparable water quality by that time. And with them, we get, the county of Sacramento gets 85,000 acre feet a year, every year. We get up to 100,000 acre feet, but only in dry years, which was then projected to be about 3 out of 10 years. So we took 15,000 acre feet this year. We can take more in the next 2 years if we have 2 more years of drought.
Okay. Marjorie?
I think that's
Comment on
a good
can you
description of Freeport. I don't know that I have anything to add to the project other than that, you know, we've got 2 straws now. We have a straw that goes up to the McCullum River, and we have a straw that goes to the Sacramento River, and we've still got a problem in the Delta. You know, if elected, I will be a staunch defender of maintaining Delta water quality and making sure that our estuary, the bay, are protected. And I will, you know, oppose the Delta tunnels as I knocked on doors to oppose the peripheral canal, and work towards solutions to water quality and water supply that don't destroy our environment.
Okay. We have all been really concerned about water, and so I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts about having penalties for people that use too much water? And do you think it should be monetary, or do you think that they should have their water shut off? What do you think about water hogs? Marjorie, let's start with you.
Sure. Right now, East Bay Mud has a policy for people that use too much water, that's sort of a progressive discipline approach that does end up with water shutoffs and reconnection at the cost of the customer. Price signals are the best way to tell people whether they're using too much water. And we do have tiered rates at East Bay Mud. For my household that uses 70 gallons a day of water for the entire house for 3.5 people, proud to say, the tier isn't low enough. So I'd like to see people that really are water misers, you know, not that pay less. And then I think that the tiers are flat enough that we need to pay. We haven't looked at them really seriously in a long time in terms of how that's structured, and there's been a lot of innovation around water pricing that I think we need to explore.
Okay. Katie?
We actually are re-looking at tiers right now because as we're going through our decisions on what to do with drought management in the future. Our board right now has determined that helping people save water is better for them than punishing them. So when we get reports, and we are getting lots of phone calls from all of you letting us know about your neighbors who are having lush green lawns and spilling water, we'll go out and visit them and actually show them how they can save water. without really hurting themselves a lot, to help them find their leaks, to help them become wiser water users, and that's been very effective for those people. They appreciate it. They don't feel like they're being hammered. They're being helped. And this is our first step. We have adopted all of Governor Brown's issues on that. So we do have the ability to fine, which is part of what Governor Brown dictated, and we'll use that if we have to in the future. Again, if we go into mandatory rationing, we are going to be much stricter. I would like to see us have steeper tiered rates also, but I'd like to add ET, which is evapotranspiration. It just means where it's hotter, you need more water for the same drought-tolerant plant, so you should be given an allowance for that. And I would support more tiers if we had that in place. Thanks.
Okay. And Marguerite, I want to apologize because I've messed up your name. My bad hearing.
It's been happening all my life. It's really okay.
My favorite aunt was Marguerite, so I should have caught that. Here's another question that people are really concerned about, and that is, what can be done to answer our concerns about water resources in earthquakes? And what do we do to improve that situation? And Marguerite, let's start with you.
EBMUD has undertaken quite an ambitious seismic program. As people, anybody that lives in the hills know, we have a lot of water, of small reservoirs to deal with our gravity zones. I think there's 180. Is that the right number? Something like some phenomenal number of zones and different elevations for pumping. And a lot of those are getting seismically retrofitted. The truth is, we have 70 and 100-year-old pipes in the ground, and we cross the Hayward Fault, we cross other faults, and in a serious earthquake, it's very true that those pipes could rupture and create problems. So everybody should have their earthquake kit, including 3 days supply of water. Firefighting is, the ability to fight fires that might happen in earthquakes is another issue. So I think it's something that should concern us all, and the crisis in public financing that affects our ability to address all kinds of infrastructure issues is also true for EBMUD, even though we're a rate-based agency.
Okay, thanks. Katie?
Yes, we have spent about $190 million working on our local infrastructure to make sure that it would hold up during an earthquake. Our biggest fear is what would happen in the Delta. Our aqueducts that bring over 90% of our water down from Pardee Reservoir on the McCullum River goes across the Delta. And if we had a major earthquake in the Delta, those islands that we cross could liquefy, and we could lose all of that, lose that source of water. In the future, we will be looking at perhaps undergrounding those pipes, but that's very expensive and probably won't happen in my lifetime. What we have done locally is we have interties now with Contra Costa Water District and with San Francisco Water District. So if we go down, we'll be able to use water from those two systems. And if they have a problem, they can use ours. Cooperation, again, for the future of California is the most important thing we can do for any kind of emergency. And I ditto everything that Marguerite said about what we should be doing at home. Thanks.
Okay. Now, I live on Harbor Drive, and they've been tearing up my street.
Sorry.
So what this question is what can be done to detect leaks and repair them promptly? Then, let's see, and grant to low-income homeowners, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading this, and grant to low-income homeowners a possibility of well, anyhow, what can you do on the leaks?
Now, is that talking about the laterals, or is it talking about the
It
pipes
just,
themselves?
it just says, what can be done to detect leaks and repair them promptly? And then it had a parents and a grant to low-income homeowners, a possibility. So I'm not
Oh,
quite
I
sure I
see.
understand that.
So
But
would it
let's
be a
back up and take
possibility?
the first part of the question. And Katie, would you start, please?
Okay, it sounds like they're talking about inside the home for leaks. And if that's true, the easiest thing you can do is just go out and look at your water meter. You know, just lift up the top and look, turn off all the water in your house and in your yard. If that little needle is moving, you have a leak. That's the easiest way to find out. And if you can't follow it through, you could, if you don't have a handyman friend around who can come and look at it, then hire somebody, because in the long run, it'll be cheaper to fix a leak when it's a little leak than when it gets larger. When it comes to giving a gift of public funds to help somebody fix their leaks within their home, that becomes more difficult for us. If we're talking about out in the street, that is our responsibility. We do have a 10% leak record right now. Interestingly enough, according to the American Water Works, that's considered good. I'm not sure what bad is considered, because 10% seems high to me. But we have dedicated ourselves to increasing the number of pipes, the mileage of pipes that we're going to be improving every year. It costs money, so we have to weigh how much we can do with how much you all can afford, because it's the buyers of water who pay for any of the work we do.
Okay.
Thanks.
Marguerite?
I actually would be in favor of programs to help low-income households address water use efficiency, and leaks are a big source of water inefficiency in a house. So I don't know what the program would be specifically. We have lots of rebates for people that want to spend money for fancy washing machines and landscaping and other things, but we, for the bare bones ways that folks need, I think it's worthwhile to do that. But on the other issue, 4,800 miles of delivery system that we knew 20 years ago had to start getting replaced, and we're at 10 miles a year right now. This is an area that I think we really shoulda, woulda, coulda started 20 years ago, to accelerating the pace of replacement of our water mains. The water main breaks that are happening right now are phenomenal. The rate has gone up a lot. Maybe that's because of the drought and there's just not as much water in the ground. But this is, as Katie says, it's a very expensive undertaking, but it's one faced by every water utility in the country. And I think part of why AWWA says 10% is okay is because it's like, it's a really bad problem. And so 10% kind of is like makes it, that seems like the standard, but that's because it's a problem that we need to address. So I think water agencies coming together as they did to figure out interties is a way we can deal with infrastructure and get to economies of scale.
Okay. Here's a question about the addition, what is your position on the addition of fluoride to the public water supply? And do you believe there has been adequate scientific research on the effects of fluoride on human health? And Marguerite, let's start with you.
I get that question first, huh? Okay. As Director of Clean Water Action in California, I did, confront this issue often. And what I will say is that of the tens of thousands of chemicals that are in everyday use in the United States, less than 3% have been fully tested for their health effects. So has fluoride been fully tested for its health effects? I doubt it. Fluoride is an element. It's not a manufactured chemical that's treated to go into water. The law for putting fluoride into water was passed quite some time ago, and it has proven effective in lowering cavities. from a common sense point of view, I wonder whether it's necessary to drink it and have it go into your body if it's mainly there for your teeth. But I think it's a fact that we live with, and on my priority list of things that we need to attend to, I put it further down the list than some of the much more important or much greater issues that we need to address in water.
Okay, Katie?
Yes, the board has been getting actually petitions on this from people who are asking us to remove it. As Marguerite noted, though, there is state law that requires EBMUD to add fluoride to our water. So we really don't have a choice. If you ask a dentist, they will almost unanimously tell you that it's made such a difference in the health of our children's teeth that it's well worth it. Since we don't have a choice, and our voters, I can't remember the year, but I think it was back in the 60s or 70s, it went to a vote of EBMUD users, and they voted to retain the fluoride in the water. So that's where we stand, and since we can't do anything about it, we're happy to provide this service. I would suggest that people who are against it talk to their legislators, because that's where the law is in place.
One of the things that several people have talked about is how do we communicate better with the public and with our constituents so that they understand the issues and understand the resources that EBMUD provides. And so I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. Would you start, Katie, please?
Certainly. I am hoping that now that people are more comfortable with the internet, that they'll go to our website, www.eastbaymud.com, because all of the information that we're talking about is right there. We do put an insert in our bills that are sent out every 2 months to you to try to explain some of the major issues we have. Obviously, we're concentrating on the drought more than anything right now. We used to send a one-year mailer. Now we're doing it online with just a notice to let you know what the quality of your water is. We have billboards. I hope you see them and notice them. If you have any suggestions about how we can outreach to you to make a more effective message, we'd be happy to do that. I personally am available to come speak to any group who would like me to come and talk to them, whether it's a neighborhood association or a Rotary or a league, which I have spoken to. I'm happy to do that because we want to help you be as water-wise as you can and be as competent with your water use as you can be. Thanks.
Thank you. As Director of Clean Water Action, I lobbied for the 1996 amendments to the Safe Drinking Water Act, which required the report that Katie referred to that used to be mailed annually, whose in large part intention was to help people understand their water source, how water is treated before it's delivered, and what happens to it after it leaves the house. I'm actually disappointed that that report does not go out to people's homes anymore. It's the one piece of mail that goes to that by law has to go to every postal address, so renters get it as well as homeowners. EBMUD did a phenomenal report. When we rated 150 water agencies around the country, EBMUD got the top prize. So I'd like to see that come back. I'd like to see that come back as something that people can put their hands on and put on the refrigerator that goes through all of the standards. When the drought happened in 1976 and 77, conservation was hardwired into those of us that lived through that time because you couldn't escape it. It was everywhere. It was in school. It was in church. It was at your business. It was everywhere. And I think the internet has made us a little bit lazy because we can go online and check Save Water, or you can check your Facebook page and do the Ice Bucket Challenge and talk about the drought. We need to get back into the schools and community centers. We need to bring this curriculum into our kids so that they understand the connection between water and climate.
One of the questions that I would like to ask you is to talk about groundwater, water that's, in our reserves, and what is EBMUD's position on saving it, retaining it? How is EBMUD using it, and what suggestions do you have for communities to keep their underground water reserves up? So, Marguerite?
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, finally, California passed groundwater management legislation, and it took this drought to do it and critically overdrafted groundwater basins throughout the state. The silver lining of that is that those groundwater basins need to be recharged. And when we are fortunate enough, cross our fingers, to get some good years of precipitation, there'll be an opportunity to refill those groundwater basins. And I think that it creates an opportunity that has not existed for the kind of cooperation between utilities that use surface water and those that use, and agriculture that primarily uses groundwater, to work out some agreements. East Bay Mud has been trying on some of those agreements for a really long time. Goes back before Katie was on the board. We also have Bayside groundwater basin project, which is sort of right here. I think there's more exploration to do in terms of our local groundwater basins, in terms of restoring our creeks to act as sponges for recharging groundwater, because the higher our water table is, the less water our landscapes need, even if you're not pumping it. So that's of critical importance to help people understand the water cycle.
Okay, Katie?
Okay. Yes, East Bay Mud, I'm guessing it was probably about 15 years ago, we looked at all of the possible groundwater sources that we had locally. Richmond has a great aquifer. Unfortunately, it's been polluted over the years because of all the industry up there, so it's no longer usable. A lot of our areas, the aquifers are very shallow, and there's no storage. We do have one site, the Bayside, which Marguerite referred to, down in the San Lorenzo area, and we have put our treated water in that. It's a very deep aquifer, lower than all the local wells that might be around. And we've put enough water in there so we could take out 1 million gallons a day for an emergency. It's a test project. Once we finish with this, we're hoping to be able to build that up to a $10 million gallon a day project. And that would be a local resource for us, which, again, because of the Delta, is so important to us. What I have been working on lately, and very importantly, is a project with San Joaquin County, which has a huge aquifer that is very depleted. For a conjunctive use program, which is what Marguerite referred to, and that would be, in wet years, we could take some excess water from the McCollum River and recharge it into the water there. Then during dry years, we could take 1/2 of it out and leave the other half for the county of San Joaquin.
I'm going to ask one more question, and then we'll sort of do a summation. And that is, I hear a lot of people talking about the desalinization plants and the use of desalinization as a water source. And so I'm wondering if you could comment on that, and is this something EBMUD is considering or interested in? Katie? We did a study with
the city of San Francisco with Contra Costa Water, DSRSD, Dublin San Ramon, Zone 7, and East Bay Mud, and Santa Clara Valley Water District, looking at possible desalinization programs around here. We did identify an area up in the Pittsburgh area where it's more brackish water that would be doable. The problem is that the expense, the energy use of any desalination program right now is both expensive and very hard on global warming. So it's been set aside for now. We have the information if the technologies get improved so that it takes less energy and it can work. It's a possibility for the future. So I think it was worthwhile for us to all look at this together, but right now it's been put on the back burner.
Okay, Marguerite?
15 years ago, I served on the state's desalination task force to look at desalination and recycling task force to look at both of those options for future water supply. It is, desal is, I would put it at the very bottom of our list. You have to remember, we only use about I mean, at most, 30% of the water that any household uses needs to be treated to drinking water standards. So the cost-benefit analysis of desal is pretty rough. It has impacts on the environment as well. Recycling to potable use is actually far cheaper and has far less environmental impact. You're using the same water, basically using the same water twice. I think there is a lot of education to be done, but that if we need to go there, that's where we should go. Australia built 12 desal plants during their 7-year drought at the early part of this millennium. They've closed all but 2 of them and mothballed them because it just doesn't pencil out for them. And, you know, if it doesn't pencil out in Australia, the chances of it penciling out here are pretty low. So I'm not banking on desal. It sounds very attractive because there's so much ocean out there, but in the final analysis, it just doesn't pencil out.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you both and to have each of you make a closing statement. And so as Marguerite started, Katie, would you start at the end?
It is my turn, yes. Thank you very much. As I said, I have served for 20 years. I would like to serve another term. I would like to really work on the conjunctive use program that I described, and I think that that's important. It's important to have that continuity of the person who has been working with that. I do have the support of 5 of our board members, of the entire Piedmont City Council and all the former mayors, the entire Moraga City Council, 4 of the 5 Renta City Councils members, the chair of Elsa Bronte Mack, which I represent, Irma Anderson, the former mayor of Richmond, Dick Spees, who represented Montclair for such a long time on the Oakland City Council. And I would appreciate your consideration to continue with this. My background before I came on the East Bay Mud Board, I spent 8 years on the Piedmont City Council, and I'm an over 40-year member of the League of Women Voters, 4 years president of the Piedmont League. That was how I got interested in politics in the first place, so I'm a great league believer. I'm also, my family has been in California on both sides since the Civil War, so I think I can match Marguerite's California statistics, and I would really appreciate your support. Thank you.
We're at a critical time in our country and in the world. My kids, your kids, are depending on us to make decisions in the next few years that will affect the quality of their life for the next centuries. There is no place where that is more borne out than in the way that we make water decisions. East Bay Mud is an acknowledged leader at the state level and at the national level. And that's why they need to even step up more, because they can and they need to. With 33 years of experience in the environmental movement as an advocate and a water quality subject matter expert, I can bring the knowledge and experience to the board. I won't have a learning curve, and I'm coming to get things done. I have gotten the endorsements and support to get things done from Congressman George Miller, Jared Huffman, the Sierra Club, Clean Water Action, Service Employees Union, the AFSCME, the Central Labor Council of Contra Costa, Tim Spranti, Assembly candidate, Libby Schaff, and Dan Kalb, Oakland City Council, 2 current members of the East Bay Mud Board, 6 former members of the East Bay Mud Board, and countless environmental, labor, and community leaders who believe that East Bay Mud needs a fresh perspective to do the work that it has to do. Thank you.
And thank you. Thank everyone for coming tonight and taking part in this evening with the candidates and asking questions that indicate the interest you have in the election process. And for further information about League of Women Voter forms and the candidates, please visit the League's award-winning website, www.smartvoter.org. There you will find descriptive information and links to other sources. www.smartvoter.org is accessible from your home computer or from the public library. We would also like to remind you that the League of Women Voters is a hands-on work to safeguard democracy. And while we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping the important issues to keep our community strong. If you would like to be involved with us in making a difference to keep our communities safe, vibrant, and strong, join the League. Just visit our website at www.lwvoakland.org. We would also like to remind you that the deadline to register to vote is October 20th. And if you have moved, or you have changed your name, or you wish to change your party affiliation since you last registered, you need to re-register by October 20th. And online registration is now available at the Secretary of State's website, www.sos.ca.gov. So remember to vote by mail or vote at the polls on Tuesday, November 4th, and encourage your friends and family and neighbors to vote. And thank you for coming tonight and participating in our forum.